This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Ash, Christopher Mitchell and 212th Trooper, and brought to you by Normandy 1998, who requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon or become a channel member and select the Pickle Producer tier, since among other benefits, this will guarantee that your video is made, be it the continuation of an existing series or a brand new story. Also, while I have you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, since it costs you nothing and helps tell YouTube you like what I do. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Our story begins a long time ago in the distant world of Arca 7. Once a fearsome battle between the Decepticons and Autobots was waged in this system, though now it is little more than a graveyard for warships, with it being inside one of these that we find our three young heroes, Autobot Academy cadets Optimus, Sentinel, and Elita-1. Despite the ban on visiting organic planets, Sentinel had convinced his two friends to join him, since rumor had it the Decepticons had vast stores of energon stowed away inside their ships, and should they find one of these caches, they would be set for life. However, upon reaching the planet, all they had found was trouble, as after getting split up thanks to a cave-in, they'd come face to face with a species of venomous spiders so large they could even threaten a cybertronian. In an attempt to escape these monsters, Elita had used her download ability to copy Optimus's grappling hook so the pair could ascend to a higher level of the derelict warship. Though as her abilities only allow for temporary mimicry, her hook had vanished before she could reach the top, sending her plummeting down into the nest of spiders. To make matters worse, the very energon they'd come seeking had been disturbed in the ruckus, turning into piles of volatile explosives detonating en masse and causing thick black smoke to fill the interior of the warship. It is here that we see our divergence from canon, as upon reaching the top alone, Optimus is reunited with Sentinel, who bellows that they have to go back for a leader, and while normally the rule-abiding bot would protest there's nothing they can do since she's already gone, here he allows his faith in his friends to outweigh his fear, and so nods. This does create the somewhat awkward question of how to get back down, as a free fall would surely mean their death, the only feasible solution being that Optimus must give Sentinel a piggyback, while the prideful bot growls that his friend is not allowed to tell anyone about this back home. Truthfully, Optimus will just be happy if they manage to get back home at all, though all the same, he affixes his grappler to a stalactite and begins rappelling down into the cargo hold with Sentinel clutched firmly to his back. Thankfully, by now the smoke has cleared somewhat, allowing the pair to see where they are going, though it is not until they are actually back inside the Chasimus chamber that they lay optics on Elita. By the grace of the Allspark, she is still online, though she is clearly in a bad way, as having been surrounded by the spiders, she had attempted to use her download powers on them, only to double over in pain as her body expands and contorts, having never been designed to download organic biomatter. Seeing that their friend is in trouble, both Optimus and Sentinel go on the attack, using their axe and lance respectively to drive off the remaining spiders, with this being about all they can do, as they have no choice but to watch Elita mutate, becoming more and more like the arachnids, until finally she is something not fully Cybertronian or spider, a techno-organic hybrid. At the sight of this, the two male bots' reactions could not be more different, as still seeing Elita beneath the flesh and extra eyes, Optimus runs to comfort her, while Sentinel keeps his distance, his expression one of deepest discomfort and disgust, as though he is looking at something once sacred now despoiled. Even in her pain state, Elita does not fail to catch this, though having more pressing concerns, she asks the pair what they are going to do. At once Sentinel replies they have to return to Cybertron at once to fix this, and while Elita is initially loath to do so, fearing that she'll simply be turned over to the Ministry of Science to be dissected, when Optimus looks her in the eye and promises that he won't let anything happen to her in that steady, compassionate voice of his, she believes him. As one would expect, the voyage home is a quiet one, as all three Autobots are lost in their own thoughts. For Optimus, his are filled with worry for Elita and guilt over having ever gone to that awful planet, while in Elita's case, she is a roiling cauldron of self-loathing at the monster she has become, and anxiety at what awaits them. And as for Sentinel, he too carries a mix of fear and loathing, though his fear is for the future of his career now there is no denying what they did, and his disgust is aimed at Elita, since as the shock died down, he realized that she had done this to herself by trying to download the powers of those vile organics. It would have been better if she had died in the fall instead of allowing herself to become this. Not long after this, the trio arrive back on Cybertron, where they are met by members of the Elite Guard, having been contacted in advance by Optimus. While Elita is led away to the Central Infirmary, he and Sentinel are then brought before Ultra Magnus, the Autobot Supreme Commander, who in a voice of gravest severity asks if these two young fools know what they have done. Over the cycles that follow, the pair are questioned and questioned again, alone, together, sometimes with Elita, other times by the Magnus himself, in an attempt to understand what happened and why three of the Academy's brightest prospects would do something so unimaginably stupid. As his highest priority is ensuring Elita gets the best treatment possible, Optimus answers every question honestly, in case something might tip the medics off to a way to reverse her condition. Though also wanting to protect his other friend, he does not attribute the idea of visiting the planet to Sentinel, being vague in that area and focusing his testimony on what happened once they arrived. In contrast, Sentinel does all he can to shift the blame away from himself and onto the others, blaming Optimus for going, and Elita for choosing to download the spider's powers rather than lie down and die. Finally, there is Elita's account, and while it closely resembles Optimus's as she has no reason to lie, she does make a concerted effort to blame Sentinel for bringing them there, being rightfully angry that his idea led to her becoming a freak, and hurt at how he's treated her ever since the accident, having not come to visit her once in the infirmary unlike Optimus, and now refusing to even look her in the face, as though she can transmit her condition through eye-to-optic contact. In the wake of this evidence, there is only one sentence Ultra Magnus can pass down, and so though it pains him deeply, he expels Optimus, Elita, and Sentinel from the Autobot Academy, thus barring them from any hope of serving the Elite Guard as the boys had aspired to, or the Ministry of Science which had been Elita's dream. Speaking of the Ministry, while they have been running tests on her, these have been rather surface level due to her being much less deconstructible thanks to her organic parts. One unfortunate result of this is they continue to make no progress in curing her, with it seeming likely it could take thousands or even millions of stellar cycles to crack the code of her infection. Having no desire to be poked and prodded for that long when they've already extracted tissue and fluid samples they can work on, Elita jumps the offer to serve as science officer aboard a small maintenance vessel called the Orion, which Ultra Magnus had granted Optimus command of, as despite his mistake, he still sees potential in the young bot. Meanwhile, Sentinel's reaction is quite the opposite, as the idea of being second in command to Optimus, or more accurately now Optimus Prime, after that glitch had ruined his life is almost unbearable for the blue and orange bot. Nonetheless, having received these orders from Ultra Magnus himself, he does reluctantly obey them, heading down to the hangar where he lays optics on the most broken down clunker of a ship he's ever seen. It would almost be comical imagining Optimus floating around in space aboard this thing, if not for the fact that he will now be trapped in this tub with him, and from the looks of things, they won't be alone, as on top of having to share this junker with Elita, they've also been shackled with an old dockbot named Ratchet who appears as worn down as the ship, and a big dumb mudflap who is appropriately named Bulkhead. With the crew now assembled, they set out on their mission, which as it turns out is the repair and maintenance of space bridges throughout Autobot territory, hardly the most glamorous of jobs, though one that needs doing. At least, that is how Optimus views it, putting his all into his work and expecting his subordinates to do the same, since they can at least take pride in the fact that they are all cogs in the great Autobot machine. Unfortunately, Sentinel has no desire to be just a cog, especially a cog so close to the bottom, with him frequently undermining his new captain's efforts by actively denigrating their work as meaningless grunt labor at every opportunity. Not only that, but as a commander he quickly establishes himself as a petty tyrant, treating his fellow maintenance bots with contempt, especially Elita and Bulkhead, who coincidentally have become fast friends considering they both enjoy discussing the science behind space bridges, so that more than once Optimus has to reprimand Sentinel for his leadership style. This does nothing to mend the pair's strained relationship, with the two former best friends barely speaking to each other, and when they do, it is with increasing levels of hostility, that soon the little maintenance ship becomes a powder keg, as everyone waits to see whether Sentinel will make a grab for the big chair first, while Optimus toss him out the airlock before he gets a chance. However, as it happens, neither outcome occurs, as instead during a routine refueling stop on Deneb 4, Sentinel simply walks into the crowd of bots and never returns. From what the rest of the crew discover while attempting to search for him, it seems a young pain in the skid plate with a big chin and a bigger mouth boarded a cargo vessel headed for the outer reaches of Autobot space. And while Optimus and Elita do not know why he would do such a thing, they hope he finds whatever he's looking for out there, and that it brings him peace. With Sentinel's departure comes a reshuffling in the ranks aboard the Orion, as rather than name either Ratchet or Elita as his official first officer, Optimus seeks both their guidance as trusted lieutenants, relying on Ratchet's experience as a veteran and Elita's experience as his close friend to recognize and warn him when he's making a mistake. Though, this is not the only change, as during a seemingly uneventful repair job a dozen or so stellar cycles after Sentinel left, they come across a cyber ninja named Prowl whose ship Bulkhead rather unfortunately wrecks. Naturally, the standoffish two-wheeler is none too pleased with this turn of events, though when Optimus offers him passage aboard their ship for a while, he quickly settles in, even if he remains aloof and intentionally tries to remain detached from the rest of the crew. However, he is hardly the strangest acquisition they make while on the job, and sometime later while breaking rocks on a desolate out-of-the-way asteroid, they make a discovery like no other, the Allspark, which Ratchet explains was cast through a space bridge eons ago for safekeeping. And perhaps this was a wise decision, as no sooner do the Autobots load it onto their craft than a Decepticon warship appears on their scanners and begins laying in a pursuit course. Recognizing that they cannot allow the Allspark to fall into the hands of the Decepticons, Optimus orders his crew to attempt evasive maneuvers, while contacting Ultra Magnus, though when the Supreme Commander tells him to sit tight, the young Prime is forced to disobey, making a run for the space bridge in the safety of home. Unfortunately, it seems the Decepticons have other plans, as Megatron himself soon departs his ship and attempts to board the Orion, only for a loud explosion to shake both the vessel and the Warlord, sending the maintenance ship hurtling through the space bridge and into some far-flung quadrant of the galaxy. As soon as they rematerialize, Optimus calls for a status report, though this is something he will never get, as out of the smoke and gloom emerges none other than Megatron, damaged and down an arm, but still the fearsome giant of a Cybertronian that has lived in the Autobots' collective nightmares for generations. Wrapping an arm around Optimus's throat, the Decepticon leader demands that he surrender the Allspark at once, though naturally the red and blue bot refuses. Using his smarts to his advantage, he kicks out at a control panel, disabling the artificial gravity and allowing the rest of the crew to rise to Megatron's level, at least in terms of height, as when it comes to battle prowess, 5 repair bots are no match for the infamous warrior, with it taking Elita's download to even make a scratch as she manifests Megatron's arm cannon and blasts him into the hold with it. This in turn frees Optimus up to activate the docking tube, sucking Megatron out of the ship and into the open air, though it is not all good news, as by now they have entered Earth's atmosphere, meaning a crash landing in the ocean is imminent, and the only thing they can do is take refuge in the ship's stasis pods and hope another Autobot will come along soon to wake them up and recover the Allspark. However, as it turns out, the thing to wake them roughly 50 stellar cycles later is the onboard security system, as it has detected a piece of techno-organic biomatter that somehow slipped in through a crack in the hull. Despite being amorphous goo, it still possesses the ability to move and even attack Prowl, but thankfully due to being part machine, Ratchet is able to use his magnet to capture and study it. From this, he is able to learn that it is part of a larger modified insect, and after checking the video feeds, the Autobots quickly discover that the rest of the beast is causing trouble and attacking the local organics in downtown Detroit. Seeing there are no Cybertronian colonists on this world, the team have the ship's onboard computer scan them all some local vehicle modes so they can blend in, though unsurprisingly, and to a great dismay, when it comes to Elita's turn to acquire one of these new forms, she cannot, remaining trapped with a cursed spider alternate mode. Recognizing his friend's distress, Optimus instructs her to stay behind and guard the Allspark while the rest of them go deal with this monster, reasoning that maybe she just needs some time to herself, not to mention the last thing the small organics of this world need is to see another large insect to frighten them. While well-intentioned, this only makes Elita feel worse, though all the same she agrees to hang back and watch the fight on the monitor. Unfortunately, this just means watching her teammates get their skid plates kicked by a gross blob of nanites and chitin, since due to Bumblebee's absence they have one less ally for what was already a difficult battle. Thankfully, like in canon, Ratchet does devise a cure code to destroy the monster, though because of the aforementioned absence there is no one small and agile enough to install it from within, as when Prowl tries he is sucked into the creature and drops the injector. Back on board the Orion, Elita watches this with horror before making a decision. While perhaps not as acrobatic as the Cyber Ninja, she can still move with the best of them, especially by using her webs like a grappling hook, so if someone's going to shove that injector down the beast's throat it should be her. However, just getting to the surface is easier said than done, as due to her organic half not being able to survive the icy waters and deep depths, she must remain in her bot mode which will slow down her movement, while also using the mask built into her helmet that allows her to breathe in space. Even with this is not a pleasant swim, though knowing the importance of coming to the aid of a friend in trouble she pushes through and upon reaching land rushes to the side of the battle as fast as her spider mode will take her. By the time she arrives, things have gone from bad to worse, as by now Optimus and Ratchet are half absorbed too, though thinking fast the Docbot manages to throw her the code injector, and knowing she doesn't have a nanocycle to spare, she thwips up and slams the code right into the beast's gaping maw, making it suddenly dissolve into a pile of dust. Landing with a flourish, Elita then bends down to help Optimus and the others up, teasingly asking if the boss bot is willing to admit that he needs her yet, to which Optimus replies that he never doubted it for a cycle and is grateful for the assist, but she really should have stayed with the ship like he told her. Having known the red and blue bot far too long to take his scrap, Elita retorts that it's a bit rich considering they're only on this planet because he disobeyed Ultra Magnus's orders. Letting out a long-suffering sigh, Prime protests that that was different. They all would have been terminated by Decepticons if he hadn't. Though cutting in, the Spider-Bot counters that he and the others would have been offlined by that bug without her, so really... However, before the squabble between old friends can continue, Ratchet interjects, gruffly stating there's still a good chance one of them will be, and looking over at the Docbot, they see him tending to Prowl, who appears to be in critical condition. Recognizing this is more important than their argument, Optimus and Elita both agree to drop it for now, and begin rolling out as they need to get Prowl back to the Orion. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to them, a small human girl who Bulkhead encountered earlier in the battle pleads with him to let her come along, and being a big softie, the green bot caves, though instructs her to stay hidden. Unfortunately, this is harder than it sounds with a loud, squirmy human, especially once they get back to the ship and she wants to have a look around. Not to mention a moment of Bulkhead not thinking ahead to consider the big picture, he finds that he cannot transform back into bot mode without crushing his tiny passenger into a paste, and so wanting to avoid getting himself or her in trouble with Prime, he deposits her safely in the hold, since surely nothing nothing can go wrong there, and in this he is correct, with something instead going very right, as from the depths of the cargo bay, the Allspark seems to react to the girl's presence, absorbing data about the Earth from her, and then repaying this information by transforming the key card around her neck into a different sort of key, bearing unknown functionality. However, it won't be unknown for long, as having spotted Bulk acting all twitchy, Elita had followed him down here, and spotting what she assumes is another organic intruder, webs her up and brings her back to Optimus so he can decide what to do with her. Though, before any judgment can be rendered, Ratchet calls them all down to sickbay, as he's losing Prowl, and wants to give his comrades their chance to say goodbye. One by one, the Autobots assemble, ready to stand vigil over their newest crewmate as he goes to become one with the Allspark. But it seems the Allspark has other ideas, as suddenly, the girl's key starts glowing and pulling her towards Prowl. Figuring she can't possibly make things any worse, Optimus allows her to approach, at which point the key changes shape once more, fitting perfectly into Prowl's chest, and completely healing him. In unison, the Autobots let out a collective sigh of relief, though with this relief also comes curiosity, as Elita wonders if that key could also heal her of her organic contamination. Though, now is hardly the time to ask for such a favor, as first introductions are in order, with a girl revealing her name is Sari Sumdak, and in turn learning the names of the other Autobots, and how they came to Earth. However, this is about all they have time for, as when checking the video feed of the city above, they see that Sari's father Isaac Sumdak has the police out searching for her, meaning it's time to go home. Returning to the surface, the Autobots are met by several SWAT teams led by Police Captain Fanzone and Dr. Sumdak, and while at first the large alien robots are treated with suspicion, here Sari proves her utility to the team beyond her key, serving as a bridge between the humans and Autobots. Through this, the people of Detroit come to realize that their new guests are not only benign, but heroic, and so embrace them with open arms as their new protectors. As part of this, they are given a new home base in the city, an out-of-use production plant belonging to Sumdak Systems, as well as being invited as guests of honor to the grand opening of the new fully automated rapid transit system, though this latter event, which was meant to be a party, instead becomes an all-out war with the arrival of none other than Starscream. Having come to claim the Allspark as his ticket to formally command the Decepticons, the maniacal Jetbot wastes no time in boasting that he was the one to defeat Megatron, and taking the humans inside their shiny new train hostage with orders to give him the ancient cube or else the small organics die. The only upside to this situation is that unlike Cannon, Starscream does not also get an Autobot hostage, as when he fires upon Sari who is attempting to save her dad as one of the captives, Optimus is able to use his grapplers to snatch her out of danger, rather than taking the blast for her like Bumblebee would. Nonetheless, the outlook is grim, with it falling to Sari to come up with a plan to save both the Allspark and the hostages, though in order to get the Autobots to take her idea seriously, she does have to break out the waterworks, introducing them to the power of crying. While somewhat manipulative, this does work, and having no better plan, Optimus brings the Allspark and distracts Starscreamer's bid, while Sari and Prowl scale the building and recover all the hostages, having no need to stick around to try and wake up Bumblebee. Now with his leverage gone, the Autobots are able to play their game of Allspark Keep Away like in Canon, which sadly has the same end as in the main timeline, Starscream being blasted away, though at the cost that Optimus must give his life for the protection of the cube. At the sight of their leader dying on the ground, the Autobots gather round him, while Elita discovers that she too has the organic ability to shed tears, holding her old friend's hand as he passes. However, unwilling to lose the red and blue bot, Sari makes use of her key, and while normally this could not revive the dead, due to being in close proximity to the Allspark itself, is able to perform this one-time miracle. Naturally, the Autobots all rejoice, welcoming their leader back, with Elita in particular being delighted not to lose another friend. In fact, their collective joy is so great that even the fact that they will now be forced to perform maintenance and cleanup for the damage caused by Starscream's rampage cannot get them down. Over the next few weeks, the Autobots begin to truly settle into their new home, some admittedly more easily than others, though fortunately they do not have to do it alone, as in that time Sari has become a frequent companion, and while she does enjoy all the Autobots' company, even broody Prowl and grouchy Ratchet, she seems to gravitate most closely to Optimus, Bulkhead, and Elita. Optimus, due to providing the paternal influence her absent-minded father can at times lack, Bulkhead because he is a genuine sweetheart who is up for anything, and Elita since they share the most commonality, as they are both at least part organic, both girls, and both possess the propensity to be sneaky or sassy as the situation calls for it. However, despite this growing bond, Elita has not yet asked Sari to use her key on her, though this is not due to any high-minded reason, but instead pure pragmatism, as Optimus had forbidden her from doing so until they know more about the Allspark key. Truthfully, this is not an act of cruelty but caution, since with the fact that her spider DNA is not of Cybertron, he's not sure the key will be able to remove it, and fears it may in fact hurt her, or risk infecting the key or even the Allspark itself, since from bitter experience they know it is capable of contaminating and altering Cybertronian systems. systems. Whether due to being more gung-ho than her old friend, or because her yearning to return to what she once was has blinded her, Elita doesn't think much of this logic, believing that as a scientist she should test this hypothesis, rather than use it to justify inertia as the risk is well worth the reward. The only problem is figuring out when and where to carry out this test, since she never gets enough alone time with Sari for her purposes. However, this all changes one afternoon when the girl comes to visit them at the plant for what she calls a sleepover, meaning she will be remaining here till morning, while the others will eventually power down for the night. Seeing this for the golden opportunity it is, Elita happily plays along with all the little sleepover traditions the human lays out, since while she does have a sort of fondness for Sari and wants her to have a good time, there is an undeniably self-serving aspect to her actions. Unfortunately, before she gets the chance to capitalize on this opportunity, an uninvited guest joins the party, Megatron, or rather a tiny drone piloted by him, as unbeknownst to the Autobots he survived his battle with them, only for his head and hand to be found by Isaac Sumdac, who has used him as the basis for his robotics. As a result, Megatron is able to take control of all Sumdac machines, including the ones in the plant, with a sneak attack catching the Autobots off guard, so that soon they are all bound and in danger of being torn apart. That is aside from Sari, as due to being a lowly human she is beneath Megatron's notice, with this perhaps being her greatest strength, since if she can reach the central control panel, she can use her key to free her friends. Worriedly, Elita tells her not to do it, since her frail organic body will be crushed by just one of the servos currently going haywire. Though adopting a determined look, Sari tells the Spider-Bot that there's a risk she's willing to take for her friends. Then with as much speed as her tiny human legs can produce, she charges. As she does this, Elita watches, feeling both concern for the girl's safety and also guilt, since in her desire to cure herself, she starts seeing Sari as a means to an end, while in contrast, the human is willing to put her own well-being aside for all of them. Subsequently, when Sari disables the plant's machinery and the Autobots are freed, Elita holds out her hand and lifts the human girl to eye height so that she can apologize, admitting her intentions and claiming that for one so small she is clearly the bigger person. Good-naturedly, Sari tells her not to worry about it since friends forgive each other when they mess up, with this putting a wide smile on Elita's face, as for the first time she truly acknowledges Sari as her friend. Unfortunately, one thing that does not make Elita smile is the encounter she has a few nights later while out on patrol with the augmented human Colossus Rhodes as part of this universe's version of the episode Total Meltdown. Due to Bumblebee's absence preventing him from hosting his little man versus machine fight, as well as acquiring the Autobots' internal fluids, entrepreneur and biotechnologist Prometheus Black is not able to transform himself into the mutant villain Meltdown, though this does not mean he hasn't had his eyes on the Autobots, especially Elita, as having seen her heroics on TV, he has become enamored by her techno-organic body, as if he could study it, he could enhance his research 1,000-fold, and finally surpass that fraud Sumdac. To this end, he has dispatched Rhodes to acquire the Spider-Bot for him, and due to being a big beefy boy with the element of surprise on his side, Colossus is able to get the jump on Elita and knock her out, though to her credit she does at least manage to get in one good scratch with her sharp spider legs before she goes down. Nonetheless, when she awakens she is strapped to a table as Black thanks her for coming, since her contribution will herald a new dawn for humanity. He's just sorry she won't survive the experimentation. As this is the very thing she feared the Ministry of Science would do to her, this naturally causes Elita to panic, thrashing and straining against her bindings, while even considering using her spider venom, a power she vowed never to use as its only purpose is to cause pain and misery like it caused her. Not that she would be able to, as Black has already cleverly tied down her pincers. As this goes on, the biotechnologist watches with cold eyes, attempting to soothe her with promises that the pain of vivisection will be brief, while her noble sacrifice will create benefits that are eternal, truly making her the hero her kind claimed to be. Though acidly, Elita spits back a promise of her own that when she gets out of these restraints, and she will, she's going to introduce him to a new definition of pain and suffering. However, this just earns her a shrug, as the mad scientist replies that he best get on with his work before she can do that. Meanwhile, back in the Autobot base, Optimus and the others are worried, since Elita hasn't reported in for a while. This is particularly concerning since due to her organic components, their scanners don't pick up on her energy readings, so they have to rely on these frequent updates. Knowing that his old friend isn't the sort to leave others to worry about her, Optimus deduces this radio silence must mean she's in trouble, and so sets out at once to search for her, with Prowl and Bulkhead by his side. Using her last known coordinates as a starting point, Optimus and his team make their way to the alley she had last called in from, with this fortunately also being the place where she was jumped by Rhodes. As a result, they are able to find the splatter from Elita's scratch, and recognizing this is more than just blood, Prowl sends the chemical composition back to Ratchet, who cross-references against various Earth computer databases to discover the patent to this formula belongs to Biotech Unbound, the company belonging to none other than Prometheus Black. Being smart enough to put one and one together, Optimus tears off once again, driving more recklessly than he otherwise would, with Prowl musing that this is odd for Prime to get so worked up, though in a knowing turn Bulkhead replies that having been around both the leader and the boss bot for a while now, it makes sense to him. Finally, after what feels like a million stellar cycles for Optimus, but is in truth just a few minutes, the Biotech Unbound building comes into view, and bursting through the front door, Optimus races in the direction of the screams he knows well, and which still haunt him. However, this will not be a simple rescue mission, as before he can reach Black's operating theatre, he is confronted by Rhodes, with the upgraded human standing a good Cybertronian head taller than Optimus, and having enough strength to send the Autobot leader staggering. Thankfully, Prime is not alone, as Prowl and Bulkhead soon join the fray as well, telling their boss to go save the leader while they handle this abomination. Gratefully, Optimus uses this chance to push through and into the room, just in time to see Black approaching a leader with a whirring chainsaw, evidently intent on collecting some samples. Letting out a roar, the red and blue bot hurls his axe, though his target is not Black, but a leader's shackle, freeing one of her arms and allowing her to punch out this human creep before releasing the rest of her bindings. Looking up at her old friend, the Spider-Bot smiles gratefully, though her expression then curdles as she lifts Black into the air and growls that she's a scientist too, and has some questions about human biology. So maybe sure to use a few of his toys to open him up and see what breakthroughs she can achieve. However, before she can make good on this threat, she feels Optimus's servos close around her wrist. As she looks back into his light blue optics, he begs her not to do this. Furiously, Elita hisses that he needs to pay. Though still calm, her old friend assures her that he will, in prison. But in order to see justice done, she can't be the one to punish him, no matter how much she may want to. For a moment, Elita's hands shake while her fangs protrude from her lips as she grits her teeth. In the eyes of Black, she has never looked like more of a monster, though as she meets Optimus's optics once again, it is plain to see that he does not view her that way, and never has, with this being what allows her to exhale deeply and hand her prisoner off to him, agreeing they should go get Fanzone, though they better do it fast, since if Black starts monologuing again about his glorious future, she might have to kill him to shut him up. Thankfully, it seems Black is too scared to say anything and will be for a long time, not even protesting as he is led away in cuffs alongside a now shriveled Colossus Rhodes. While to the side, Elita thanks Optimus for coming after her yet again, adding that she never properly did so for the first time. Though, this just elicits an earnest smile from the blue and red bot, as he replies that it was his pleasure, and that she can always count on him to have her back. Following this is the episode Blast from the Past, which goes much like canon, since while Grimlock does see his beloved Spider Lady earlier than in canon, he does not yet know how to articulate such feelings beyond belching fire and showing off through wanton destruction, meaning he and his peers still appear as mindless beasts, prompting Prowl and Bulkhead to save them and hide them away on Dinobot Island. Likewise, the start of the thrill of the hunt plays out as it did in the main timeline, as Optimus is still captured by Lockdown, who extracts his grapplers as a sadistic trophy. However, things begin to change when the bounty hunter contacts his client who put the price on Optimus's head, as here it is not Blitzwing, but his boss, the former Decepticon third in command, and now acting leader in the absence of Megatron's Starscream. Upon learning that Optimus is still alive, which was a condition of the contract, the client instructs Lockdown to rendezvous with him immediately to receive payment, though before the merciless Merc can leave Earth, the Autobots arrive at his hideout. Figuring he can collect a few bonus trophies, Lockdown then attempts to dispatch these intruders, and while the EMP is enough to slow down Bulkhead and Prowl, Elita and Ratchet are only playing possum, since Ratchet is immune to his own weapon, while Elita's organic half makes the EMP less effective on her. Thanks to this, the pair are able to strike just as Lockdown's guard is lowering, pinning him to a wall with Elita's web so that Ratchet can retrieve his lost EMP generator, and extract some long overdue payback on the bot who traumatized him during the war. As this happens, Elita sets to freeing Optimus, all the while teasing that it looks like this time he's the damsel in distress and she's the hero, though in his present state, Prime cannot even muster a chuckle. This is deeply concerning to the Spider-Bot, who has thought of nothing but saving him since he disappeared, though swallowing her feelings for the moment, she joins Ratchet in helping him out of the ship before it blasts off. When they're outside, Elita looks to Ratchet, worriedly questioning if Optimus will be okay, to which the grizzled medic soberly replies that he will be, but he'll need time. Nonetheless, Optimus does not allow this experience to stand in the way of his duty, as just a few days later he is back at work apprehending a small-time crook named Nino Sexton. However, this unwittingly puts him in the crosshairs of Megatron, who has a prototype Turboblade cybersuit delivered to him, with instructions to steal and deliver a canister of highly volatile destronium to some deck tower within 10 minutes, so that he may use it to build himself a new body. As one would expect, this draws the attention of the Autobots, and while Bumblebee is not here to have his rivalry with Sexton, or as he now calls himself, Nanosec, he still falls victim to the suit's fatal flaw, aging rapidly into an old man, at which point Ratchet and Prowl can catch him. However, this is not the simple happy ending it seems, as having been all shaken up, the canister of Destronium is now ready to blow, with an explosion that will wipe half of Detroit off the map. Thankfully, here Elita is able to help, as while she doesn't have Bee's jet boosters, she does have her webs, shooting a line between two skyscrapers and pulling it back as a makeshift slingshot. Recognizing this is their best chance, the other Autobots then all join in, pulling together and letting go at the last second, so the unstable substance is sent soaring into the upper atmosphere, at which point it harmlessly explodes, meaning Detroit is once again safe. Following this is Along Came a Spider, which is understandably skipped as it's the debut of the villainous Black Arachnia, meaning Sari and her friends can just enjoy a normal Halloween of trick-or-treating, though for what it's worth, Elita loves Sari's costume, almost having an oil leak from laughing so much. Conversely, Sound and Fury goes the same as canon, since there isn't much Elita's influence would have, considering it's a Sari bulkhead friendship story. However, one notable change does occur out in the depths of space, as having tracked Lockdown's signal, Blitzwing and Lugnut finally arrive on the moon. Though here they are not alone, as standing between them is the bot who has commanded them since his rapid ascension through the Decepticon ranks, Sentinel. Now bearing the purple and green colours of the Decepticons, the haughty bot instructs his minions to follow him down to the planet below, as the signal came specifically from one of the Earthling cities. Wordlessly, the trio then descend, their titanic feet making deep craters in the Detroit streets, not that they care. Instead, their optics are all locked firmly on the humans who had up until now been minding their own business, but who have taken to staring up at them with wonder, believing that these are more friends of their Autobot heroes come to protect them. However, nothing could be further from the truth, as with a look of deepest revulsion upon his face, Sentinel instructs Blitzwing to cleanse the organic contamination, something the red-faced rage form is happy to do, as he levels his flamethrowers at the humans and opens fire. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.